A few years ago, I was renting a house in Northern California. The neighborhood was just outside the suburbs. It seemed like the perfect balance of having space and having nice neighbors close enough not to feel isolated. The area had no streetlights, so it was very dark at night, especially if there were clouds blocking the moonlight. It didn't bother me though. It made my little house feel even more charming on dark nights. I was driving home from work one night in midwinter. It was a cloudy night, so pulling up to my house, I could only see what my headlights and front porch light illuminated. When I got out of my car, I caught a whiff of cigarette smoke. It was odd, as I had never smelled that before around the house. I didn't see anyone nearby, so I ignored it and went inside. I had just got off a shift, with a few hours of overtime, so I felt pretty tired. Even though it wasn't even 7 yet, I decided to take a shower and call it a night. I woke up later, certain I had heard a noise inside my house. I wasn't worried right away because my friend would sometimes stop by to use my shower after work on his way to his night classes. I even gave him a spare key so he could stop by even if I wasn't home. He would always text me to let me know beforehand though, and I hadn't heard my phone go off. I reached over to my nightstand and picked up my phone to see if my friend had texted me, but the phone's screen was too bright. So I set it aside and called out his name instead. There were a couple of seconds of silence before I heard someone running on the bottom floor. I jumped out of bed and ran to the closet. They were already up the stairs by the time I had opened the door and stepped inside the closet. The house had 3 rooms upstairs, 2 bedrooms, and a bathroom at the end. The bedroom doors were both closed, but the bathroom door was cracked open. I heard the intruder storming down the hallway, rushing past my door and into the bathroom. Thankfully, he did that, because that gave me enough time to open the attic access hidden in the ceiling of my closet. I was beginning to pull myself up when the intruder ran back out of the bathroom. My feet were barely inside of the attic when my bedroom door burst open. I heard footsteps run into my room and stop. When he didn't see me in that room, he ran back to the hallway and into the other room, which just had boxes stacked in a corner, some weights, and a table where I painted my miniature models. I guess he thought that if someone was hiding, it would be in the bedroom, because he came back into my room and turned on the light. A moment later, the closet flew open. I was crouched in my attic just a foot or so away from the access, so I could try to stop him if he started to climb up. From my position, all I could see was from his knees down. He was wearing dirty blue jeans with frayed cuffs and worn work boots. After a few seconds of looking in the closet, he stepped away and I heard a loud crash come from my room, followed by a scream of frustration and anger. That scream was the most unnerving part for me. The man in my house ran back down the stairs. I heard crashes and clatters as things were thrown around and furniture was knocked over. I remained crouched in the attic. I'd forgotten my phone when I ran for the closet, and I wasn't certain I could climb down without him hearing. After some time, the noises stopped, and I started counting slowly. When I reached 1,000, I decided it was safe to climb down and call the police. The first thing I noticed when I exited the closet was the intruder had flipped my bed over, I assume in an attempt to find me. That was the loud noise I had heard after he stepped away from the closet. I couldn't find my phone, so I went to the landline by the bed and called the police. I waited in my room until I heard them call out from downstairs. The first floor was a mess. Chairs had been knocked over. The sofa had been flipped. All the books, pictures, and ornaments I had on my shelves were scattered across the floor. The cupboards in the kitchen had been opened, and all the boxed and canned foods had been thrown to the ground. As far as I could tell, though, the only thing missing was a single knife out of the wooden block in my kitchen. The police checked the house from top to bottom. They discovered the side door had been forced open by a crowbar. They also found a few cigarette butts along with some foil and an empty pen tube, which the police said people often use to smoke. So they thought he had been watching my house for a while. I realized he must have been out there smoking a cigarette when I got home. They collected up the evidence and told me I should stay with family or friends for the night and get the door fixed as soon as possible. I decided not to sleep. I moved a shelf over to block the broken door and spent the next couple hours cleaning things up. I often went to the window with a flashlight and shined it along the fence line where the police found the cigarette butts and foil, but I didn't see anything. The next day, I called to have the door fixed and motion lights installed at the back and sides of the house. I also ran a phone cable up into the attic and added a landline. I never wanted to be stuck up there without a phone again. 6 years ago, I was living in a relatively nice apartment in downtown Memphis, working as an ophthalmic technician. I arrived home from work at my usual time, around 4:30 p.m., unlocked my door, and went inside. I set my phone, wallet, and keys on the kitchen island, hearing my heavy metal front door swing shut loudly behind me, and began taking care of some errands inside. Having grown up in a small town, it was a habit for me to not lock my door during the day, especially when I knew my husband would be home soon anyway. My front door opened, and I smiled with surprise. My husband was home a little early, and I happily called out to him, "I'm in here, love." I was met with silence, and slowly began to feel that sinking feeling of something is wrong. I tried to shake it off, thinking my husband simply hadn't heard me, and walked into my living room kitchen area. Standing on the other side of my kitchen island was a complete stranger. This man, who's older than me, probably in his 50s, just stands there, staring at me. No ski mask, no weapon, just watching me. I wondered if he'd maybe walked into the wrong apartment and was going to apologize and leave. But as he continued to stare, I realized I needed to do something other than just stare at this stranger in my house. I stood taller, puffed up my chest in an attempt to look more threatening, and used a loud, clear voice telling him to get out of my apartment, that he had no business being here. He completely ignored me, like I hadn't spoken. Then he began to pick up my things, my cell phone, my keys, my wallet. He picked them up carefully and put them into his own pockets. That's when it truly hit me that this person was dangerous. I was naive enough to believe this was all a mistake until that moment. I rushed forward toward the only other device I had that would allow me to get help, which was my laptop. I had to take a few steps closer to the intruder in order to reach it, but still had about 15 feet between us, so I knew I could grab it and run before he could reach me. As I picked it up and turned to run, I saw him start to move after me, and I sprinted back toward the bathroom because it was the only place I could go and put two locked doors between us, my bathroom door and the closet door. I slammed and locked the first door, and within seconds I can hear him messing with it, trying to open it. I ran into the closet and locked that door too, opening my computer and getting on Facebook Messenger to contact my husband. I sent message after message pleading with him to call 911 and tell them there was an intruder in the apartment. He got the messages within seconds and assured me that he had a dispatcher on the phone and was leaving work himself to try and get to me if he could. I waited and waited. The bathroom door flung open and the intruder came inside. He moved to the closet door and started trying to break that door down too. At this point, I was frozen with fear. I didn't scream, cry, search for a weapon, brace the door, or try to hold it closed. I just kneeled in my closet and waited to die. because I just knew that's what was going to happen. Miraculously, the closet door held. I heard frustrated footsteps going back out into the living area of my apartment, and things breaking, bottles shattering, my drawers and cabinets being flung open as things were torn out of them. I continued to sit in the closet, silently crying, wanting to leave, but feeling that death was inevitable. I messaged my mom, who lived 15 hours drive away, and told her what was happening. I desperately wanted comfort and to tell her how much I loved her. She messaged me constantly, begging me to keep replying. I told her I would, as long as I could, to also tell my brothers I loved them and to help my husband through whatever happened next if it ended badly for me. The intruder started messing with the closet door again, mumbling disjointed words that I couldn't really distinguish. I hoped that the police would get to the apartment before my husband so he wouldn't be the one to find me in whatever state this invader left me in. The front door opened again, and it was my husband shouting for me. The intruder walked out toward the living room and kitchen area again, where my front door was located. I opened the door and ran from the closet, finding my husband on the ground, pinning him in place. The man kept mumbling, at times yelling, but never really put up much resistance. Eventually, the police found the apartment. They got my things back from the man and took him out. I numbly went through the process of filing a report, telling them what happened, and one of the officers commented that I should keep my door locked at all times. I'm sure he's seen this situation indifferently for other women. Within 30 minutes, the scariest incident of my life was over, but I've carried the fear and the anxiety of having someone invade my space for years.